Hello and welcome to the That's So Craven podcast, your Fulham podcast from down under. And we are here after a draw against Brighton on the weekend. Fulham playing in their Flamingo Pink for the first time this season. It's Palhinha's pink point against Brighton. Palhinha, the pantomime villain, as well on the day here in his bright pink as well. We have Sammy. How are we going?
Palhinha's pink point is what you went for.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, I'm going good. Well, actually, my back really hurts because I was gardening the other day. But I'm doing good. I am tired as ever because I can only do these tired, which is part of the fun. And yeah, I'm ready to rock. Let's get into it.
And Dad, you're joining us as well. I will comment that Sam is half your age, and he's complaining about his bad back. You kept for 40 overs on the weekend. How's your back?
Yeah, interesting. I actually was mobile the day after, which is really something. I was expecting a lot worse, so it was fine. Yeah, but other than that, I have no medical complaints.
My question is, did your whippersnipper broke, and then you had to use the hedge trimmers?
No,
So,
no.
it's a different injury. You can't compare.
Okay. We won't also talk about the fact that Dad dropped a catch off me on the weekend. We'll move on very quickly and get straight into the game. So let's talk about it. It's a game against Brighton, and again, Fulham remain unbeaten against Brighton. It's a weird little stat, unbeaten in the Premier League. And I guess, Dad, your thoughts going into this game, because Brighton have been on ripping form so far this year, picking up some very good points, good victories. How did you feel going into this game?
Well, I was not confident at all because they are as well organized as we found them, and they're a tricky little customer. They're very good opposition, and I was expecting to potentially get beaten by one or two goals. As downbeat as some people might be about the result, I'll take the point. Thank you very much, particularly on the road. And there was there were things to be upbeat about in the game, and certainly in the second half.
Oh man, I'm totally not downbeat about this game. Brighton are every kind of bit of what you expect them to be. They're so meticulous. They've got some really excellent players, and they're just so well managed and well done. But what is Fulham to Brighton? We're kind of like their Achilles heel at the moment, because I was really anxious going into this game. But then I can't remember where I saw it, but I was reminded of the last couple of fixtures that we've actually had against them, and we've got a weirdly good record for a weirdly impressive team. I don't yeah. I feel like Jack could probably break this down in terms of structure as to why we're able to one up Brighton, but on paper it doesn't really make sense. But no, this is awesome, and we played in pink, and I love the pink. Yeah.
Honestly, I don't think there's anything to it. I think you have those bogey teams sometimes, and for some reason in the Premier League, Brighton just can't get past us. They're
Makes no
definitely.
sense.
I mean, I think we can be honest here and say they're a better side than Fulham are.
Yeah.
They hold the ball incredibly well. They pass out of defence really beautifully the majority of the time. And look, I think we just managed to sneak victories and hold out for really good draws. I think we look. It's an old cliche, but it felt like a game of two halves. The first half for Fulham was disjointed, error filled, sloppy. We just didn't look like a unit at all. And Dad, I think we were talking about it at half time. It was poor, and we just needed changes. And fortunately, those changes happened, and it looked like a different side in the second half.
Well, I think there were some worrying signs as well. I mean, look, you don't know, but it just seemed a little concerning from a couple of players that didn't really seem to be putting the effort in. And I can call them out if you like, but I think it was. Um, I particularly liked um, how hard we were pressing in parts, but it wasn't consistent and it
Mm,
wasn't joined up. And I wonder also if uh, Brighton probably prepared for Fulham that actually didn't turn up in a way, because we were a little bit different to how I think we were against them last time. Um, I mean, we're quite a different side if you take out Solomon, and I don't think Mitro played when we were away to Brighton last time, did he? No, I don't think he did.
I think he might have
he-
been injured at the time because
Decadova Reed was up front, wasn't he?
yeah, yeah, Bobby was up front and
Um,
was poor in that game up front.
yeah,
yeah,
Just got
yeah,
completely outmuscled by Dunk from memory, and then
yeah.
Vinny
mm,
obviously came on towards the end and was the
yeah,
man who played Solomon through for the goal.
yeah. That's right. But if you know what I mean, maybe they were expecting something fairly similar, and Iwobi definitely offered something different.
Mm.
And um, I don't know. But they are, as you said, Jack. They're a really good side, and I guess we probably are their bogey side because they have dismantled some very very good teams and got
Mm.
points off good teams, but they can't seem to really bury us, even
Oh,
though
they,
even though on not on paper but on form they should be.
Oh, like they're an excellent squad. I mean, like Matoma. I mean, they've got James Milner on their bench. They got Ansu Fati on their bench, which is ridiculous when you think about it. Um, but like it, particularly in the first half, I mean, Brighton were doing their kind of like composure thing, just passing it around, just being real skulky. Um, I I'm not sure about you guys. I want to ask your opinion on this, but this I think I've been really patient and really nice, but this was probably the first game where I was genuinely considering, can we get a refund for Jimenez? Because particularly in the first half, I seem to remember like maybe like yeah, he had that brief attempt when like Iwobi got it back to him and he just did nothing with it, and then he fumbled it, which then created the counter attack that led to like the goal. And I partly feel I'm kind of past feeling bad for him. And I mean, in the second half, Muniz came on, and where's that big boy been? Like, I don't think he can play a full 90 minutes, but he was such a massive improvement. Yeah. Oh, Jimenez for me. Nah.
Jack,
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think we surely have to put it to bed now and just say the Jimenez experiment is not working. I'd love to see it work because he does do some things that look really good. Like, for example, I don't know if you're talking about the same chance, Sammy, but where I think Iwobi played it into Jimenez, he actually laid it off perfectly for
He
Iwobi.
did.
Unfortunately, it just got stuck under his feet. And look, if that had ended in a goal, maybe we'd be having a different conversation and he gets a bit of confidence and maybe Silver sticks with him because we're 1-0 up, and you never really know what will happen at that point. But it's just not working at the moment, and I feel a bit sorry for him in a
mm,
way. I don't want to lump on him and say he's terrible because he's obviously not terrible. He can do it. He's had a serious injury and just hasn't been able to bounce back from it. And
The thing
maybe
for
he needs to
me,
go to a side and go out on loan and score some goals somewhere down in the championship, for example.
the thing
I
for me was when he lost possession, he kicked his head back and just went, oh. And then that led to a really strong counterattack. He's so in his head in this moment where it's just kind of, I really just want to put him out of his misery, because it's just getting to a real unhealthy point now where
well,
we're not
can
good for
can
him,
you
he's not good for us. Yeah.
can you blame the guy for being in his head? I mean,
Of
it's a
course
lot.
not. Of course not.
And I actually think not only ourselves, but I think people, the Fulham supporters in general, have actually been quite patient.
Yeah.
Mm,
Maybe because they don't have a lot of options and they know something has to work, out of the bag of tricks that Marcus Silva has. And there's all kinds of analysis. Is he not getting fair service? There's all sort of trying to find other reasons why this isn't really gelling. But what worried me, and I thought in the early part of the season, I actually felt that he was quite hardworking. I thought yesterday he didn't look like he was working hard
Mm,
enough to me.
yeah.
Is that unfair?
No, completely fair.
Yeah,
That's what did it for me.
I really bothered me, and maybe that's just a culmination of his frustration with his own form, and who knows, maybe he feels the system isn't serving him. Maybe he feels all kinds of things, but ultimately it is not working, and he doesn't seem to be able to hold the ball up and do the really basic things that we need him to do, and he loses possession a lot of the
Mm,
time. It
yeah.
looks like really basic stuff, and he can't be that bad. Surely that cannot be the mark of his quality. So what on earth
Mm.
is going on? I do not know.
Yeah, well, I tend to agree. I just think it's time to move on, and maybe he's a good option off the bench. I think he's shown that he can offer something coming off the bench, especially late in the game. He does have a little bit of pace about him, so I don't think he's the worst backup striker. He's just not our starting striker, and we're not going to get the goals we need from him. As Black, White, and Fred on the live stream says, Muniz offers good physicality. Raul's a little bit lightweight in that
Mm,
department. I do agree with that. He does seem to get shoved off the ball a bit more, and Muniz and Vinicius both have that little bit more strength about them. I actually thought Muniz looked, 10 times better than Jimenez when he
yeah.
came on. Admittedly, didn't score and didn't really have much to do with the actual goal that we did score, but at least he seemed to offer something. And maybe it's about keeping guys like Muniz and Vinicius hungry as well, and
Mm.
having them really want to fight for that role. And
Well,
that's actually going to be the key to getting something out of them.
wouldn't it
He's
be interesting? Wouldn't it be interesting if Silva decides that the Jimenez project is over, but Vinny's injured, and now suddenly you find yourself in a situation where you have to give Mooney's a try and actually giving him an opportunity and a few games. And who'd have thought, like 8 weeks ago, that we'd actually be in this position?
Well, like Silva's always. I mean, Silva got Muniz in. He's clearly always seen something in him. He sent him out on loan when he didn't necessarily have anything for him. I think with the intention to like get him minutes to like play. He's a really big boy. Like I know I've seen him play before, but like I feel like he's filled out even more. He's a thick daddy. I to be honest, I can't really see him scoring in like any games coming up. But I mean, even if all he's just doing is like providing physicality and not in like the crazy way that Vinicius does, because like Vinicius is always kind of like pushing for a red card in a bit of an unhealthy way. Whereas like
Well,
Muniz is just kind of getting involved, and
is
I'm
it
okay with
is
that.
is it as simple now as our expectations have been reduced to absolute rubble? Is it
Yes.
as simple? Is it as simple as if he could just work cohesively with all the other forwards to be part of a really, really, really good, well organized press and work really hard, we'd probably take that.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little bit more than just that. I genuinely think we may be downplaying his ability. He's young. He hasn't
Mm,
had a huge opportunity to show himself. And unfortunately, when he went out on loan, there was a change of managers at Middlesbrough. He got dropped. But Silva picked him up, and Silva liked the look of him early doors. So you have to think that there is something there. He's a Silva signing. Um, and I like him going for a back heel to try and score a goal, even though it didn't
Mm.
come off. He
yeah,
actually got
yeah.
good contact, and it was a
Yeah,
good
yeah,
attempt
yeah.
on
Mm,
target. He got himself around. He won the ball a few times. He made a nuisance of himself. He
stayed in the
looked pretty
box.
comfortable on the ball. In general, I think it was a pretty good showing from him. Let's jump back though and talk about Brighton's opening goal. Um, Dad, you messaged me and you said you weren't sure if Fulham maybe could have done better, both defensively and from Leno in goal as well with this one. Walk me through your thought process on that.
Well, maybe it's a mark of just how sublimely silky Ferguson's movement turning of his opponent and actually slotting it away actually was, because it looked too easy to me. It looked like he stroked that past Leno too easily. But we talked about that, and yeah, maybe it's just a mark of actually how good the young kid is.
Oh,
He made it
I
look easy.
yeah, look, I think like and Brighton did this really, really well. They created a lot of space in a really short period of time. And like uh it just in the way that like I can't I'm trying to remember exactly what happened and essentially where that kind of made Bassey and Robinson drift. But they created like a lot of space for him on the right. So then all he just basically had to do was do a pretty clean shot on goal. But they actually gave him the time to like actually have that level of composure. Like Brian just do that really, really well in general. But it should always kind of be on us for not allowing Brighton to play their own game. So it's a bit of a yeah, they're great, but I think
It was
yeah.
yeah,
Jack,
I know what you're saying there. But what happened was Tim Ream steps up to go to the man. I can't remember who the assist was from.
yeah,
I
neither.
think it could have been Dahoud, played it into the feet, or it could have been Gross, played it into the feet. Um, at that point, he stepped away from marking Ferguson, so Robinson has to step in to mark him. Robinson is on the wrong side of him. He needs to be goal side of him, but obviously because Ream stepped up, he's getting across. He's on the wrong side. Bassey anticipates Ferguson running in behind, and so runs back towards goal, therefore playing him onside. It's as Black, White, and Fred in the live stream says, it's what happens when you have a makeshift back four. They're not
Mhm.
working together as a unit. They're not moving at the right times. You know, in those situations, usually I think when Diop's there, Tim Ream probably knows that he can stay on Ferguson because Diop will be there closing the man down. But Bassey's looking for the run, and it just didn't
Mm,
work as a defensive unit. And I think for the whole
mm,
first half, the whole unit across the whole pitch just wasn't working. And this was
Mm.
a pretty good example of it. And look, it's a good finish. Dad, you mentioned that Leno maybe could have done better because it's not like Ferguson smashed it in, but it is. I don't know if you've watched it back since. It is a very good finish from Ferguson.
It
I
is,
think
And
yeah.
look,
the speed at which he does it all probably doesn't even give Leno a chance to get into a better position.
yeah, it's a
Because
touch and shoot.
yeah, I mean Leno is a tall boy and he pretty much covers, either side if he dives, and it's beaten him.
Mm.
Yeah, what's interesting is I actually think, to be fair to Bassey, he's had a better game than he did the week before. Once
Absolutely.
again,
Definitely.
on his non-preferred side. So I think he's settling in, and he's certainly, you know, he's not an imposter in the back four by any means, not at all, right? And he's having to do a job which you could ask Tim Ream to do as the more senior statesman, but he's having to do a job. And I thought he did okay, and even Castagna, he was not outstanding, but he did a decent job.
Can we can we
Um,
briefly can we briefly talk about Bassey like a little bit more and give that like some actual time? Because I think it would have been really
Even if I said
easy.
no, feels like you want to.
I do want to. I do want to. But like it would have been really easy for Silva to literally go, that didn't work, and then switch him around like we were talking about last pod. But I'm just so glad that I in my brain I'm creating the narrative that like Bassey just went, no, I can do it in this position. I will play better, and I feel like he really did that. I really like his character and like who he is, and I just see him getting better and better, and again just being more confident. And I'm kind of I don't want to say I'm glad that he's showing that attitude to playing out of position, because all that says to me is when he is able to play in his position, he's going to be even better.
I'm going to say you might be making and reading a little bit too much into this. I think
That's what
Silva
I
has
was saying.
nothing to play with here. He's got two injured right centre backs. He doesn't
Mhm.
want to bring Luke de Fougerolles through, and that's a fair call. And it's Bassey, you're the adult in the room, you're doing it. Get on with it.
Oh,
It's more
mate.
like Tim Ream is the captain and goes, actually, I've played
Yeah.
where I want
I
to play.
like it here.
No, I'm
So
not going to
suck
be
it up,
made a
mate.
fool of on my wrong foot.
Yeah.
And
Look,
to be fair, Bassey's right foot yesterday looked tons better than it did the week before. He still
you know
made a
why?
number of passes that lost possession, but it still
Because
looked much
often
better.
on his right foot, he just put his foot through it like he should do and put it,
Mm,
as far forward as possible rather than trying to play
mm.
pinpoint passes out of the back,
Yeah,
which
maybe
is,
that was a clear strategy as well. Like, okay, we play out of the back, but if you get caught on your right foot, put your foot through
yeah,
it.
hoof, which is what you should be doing as well. If you're
Mm.
not super strong on your right foot, and Brighton are a good pressing team as well. So I think, look, it was definitely a better game. I wouldn't say it's a perfect game from Bassi, and
No, of
Nah,
course.
of course not.
I'm looking forward to seeing him maybe when there's a bit more rotation. I wouldn't be that surprised if we didn't see him play at the back against Ipswich, and maybe De Fougerolles actually does get a start and Ream gets a rest in that game.
Mm.
And we see Bassi on the left and De Fougerolles on the right.
Yeah, good call.
We could see something like that. But look, it's definitely a step in the right direction for Bassi. He obviously made a couple of big mistakes in that Spurs game, and I'm sure he'd be feeling pretty crap about it. And he's come back and had a good game. One other flashpoint in the first half, which, geez, anyone who was watching along would have been absolutely sick of hearing about this by the end of the game. The Palhinha horrific elbow
Oh
on
yeah.
Pascal Gross in the first half. Without going too deep into it, because we'll just end up sounding like a Brighton hate podcast. Sammy, I'll go to you first. Was it a red card?
No, I mean, especially in the first. Okay, maybe I'm biased. I don't care. But look, yeah, I'm sure there is a certain ref that could see that as a potential red card. I don't see any intention in it. He's clearly got his eyes on the ball, and he's just Palhinha doing Palhinha things. Yeah, you can argue it's dangerous play. He is flailing around in the way in which we love him for. You can argue as well that he's a bit reckless. I'm not painting the best picture, but look, early on in the game, I think the ref actually did the right thing because it was very, very early on in the game, and I think it's quite natural for silly mistakes to happen early on in the game. If that happens in the second half, that's a red card for me. But I think I understand the ref's logic a little bit. Dad, you're laughing. Why are you laughing?
Because
That's
you're
a
sounding
crazy
like
argument,
you're sounding like a father who's just watched his son's under 12 game where he's behaved really badly and he's trying to explain it away and not
He
doing a very
played
good job.
amazing. He played
Yeah.
amazing that game.
Yeah.
And
I think the maybe the more pertinent comment is that the ref was awful, and for the first
Yeah.
time in memory, we actually weren't on the wrong end of it. Like
Yeah.
he was inconsistently terrible. He was
yeah.
trying to let it go, but he missed so many things.
Mm.
And I think that I don't know how deliberate it was. Palhinha is overzealous. He's overzealous. He just goes in so
Yeah.
hard, and it was untidy. I don't think he meant it for a minute. He likes super hard challenge. He's not dirty. He's just hard.
Mm.
And I think there's a general complaint, even on the training ground, that he just goes in way too hard and he forgets himself. And I think that was just untidy.
Yeah, what's your take on it, Jack?
Yeah, I don't think there's any malice in it. He definitely goes in. I think the arm's
That's the
actually in a
right word.
fairly natural position. It's not like he
What, like that?
Well, it's not. Well, no,
Natural for Palhinha.
his arms are out wide in a way that you do when you're trying to, get your body in front of someone.
Yeah.
Gross's head actually drops as Palhinha comes towards him. It's not like Palhinha's come in leading with his elbow or got his elbow up at like head height. He's got his arms out wide, Gross hits into his elbow. I don't think there's anything more to it than that. I think if you get sent off because of that, it's harsh. Look,
You could
the
see it
arm,
happening though. You could see it
yeah,
happening.
absolutely. The arm definitely makes contact with the head. It doesn't make contact at any great pace, and Gross goes down holding his face as if he's literally just
meal
been
of it.
clotheslined, and it
Which is
really
what I
does
would
make a
do.
meal of it. Which is what a lot of people do. I mean, on top of that, there's a lot of Brighton fans saying it was ridiculous. Palhinha elbowed him in the head, and Fulham went down with fake head injuries all game. Don't know if you saw Palhinha and Castagna both had blood drawn through two different injuries during the game. So it's not like we were diving throughout the game, and I think Brighton fans are just a bit salty that they couldn't get a win against Fulham.
Well,
I think the more contentious thing was how salty the commentator was, and he just wouldn't let it go. He just wouldn't let it go.
You know what? For the Brighton fans, I'll give you one.
Which there must be
little
so
treat.
many.
Of course. Yeah, welcome. I'll give you one little treat. You know what? You drew blood on us. I can admit that Andreas Pereira was being a naughty boy for the majority of the game. I can admit that, to the point where at one point Palhinha literally had to pick him up and be like, "Stop dicking around."
Yeah,
okay.
maybe.
Look, halftime comes. Fulham obviously very disappointed in that first half. I think, especially being 1-0 down, I don't know what you guys thought, but I was just looking at this going, this could be 3, this could be 4. We just didn't look like really making anything of it. No subs at halftime. Dad, were you surprised?
Oh, it's a pretty silver kind of maneuver, even when things aren't working very well. No, I'm sticking to my plans. Or maybe his feeling is that my bench is too thin, and if I make moves now, I just don't have options for later. Yeah, I just I think we touched on it before, but it just seemed weird that Iwobi, who I loved starting, was really pressing quite hard, but he'd be running round and almost turning around and looking behind him and going and noticing that no one's backing him up. It was weird.
Oh, yeah.
And
there's a lot of that going on.
Yeah, it's terrible. Anyway, back to you,
I
John.
definitely saw Jimenez get very annoyed by it at one point. As you said, they were pressing very hard, but there was just no one pressing the man that was receiving the pass. And it's what Silva said post game as well, basically, that in the first half we pressed well individually, but not as a unit. And in the second half, there was definitely a change where you could see everyone was pressing. And it's what brought about the goal as well. But before the goal, we did have a triple substitution. Muniz, Wilson, and Pereira all coming on. Saw Harrison Reed, Decadova-Reid, and Jimenez off. And it did make the difference. Fulham broke the deadlock not long after that. Not deadlock, sorry. They equalised not long after that. Sammy, I'll let you talk through Palhinha's goal because I know you love him so much.
I think he's my favorite Fulham player ever. I think he's taken over Bobby Zamora's crown. He's just excellent. Yes, he's a beast the entire time, but just that it felt like that ball that he struck could have kept on going for another 70 kilometers. He's just so straight, so direct, so powerful. It's just so awesome. And he only gets those shots as well, which makes me love him even more. I don't really have many more adjectives. He's just fantastic. And it's what we've talked about with our striker situation. Waiting for everybody else to help you create chances. He creates chances out of seemingly nothing, and that's why he's special, and that's why I love him so much. He's awesome. He's the best. And he did it in pink, and I still can't. I'm wearing him. I'm literally wearing him right now, and that just makes me happy.
I'll throw to you for an actual talk conversation about the goal?
Look, great opportunistic goal. What I love about Palhinha, which I've now come to realize, and I think we all have, after that little skirmish with Bayern Munich over the summer, he's very much sort of in the moment, isn't he? He's still thumping the badge, and he's clearly not going to retire at Fulham, although he might. Yeah, given in his last contract if Bayern go away. But he's so passionate that even though he's clearly made his ambitions beyond Fulham known, in the moment he's all for us, which is kind of very transparent and very lovely about him. I think he's an honest bloke, you know.
Yeah.
Maybe his brother's a different piece of work, and together they're complex. But I think he's a very, very straightforward guy who, you know, there's your shirt, there's your shorts. Okay, I'm playing for you today, and he gives you 120%. And what's not to like about that, you know?
The thing that I also love about him as well is if you go on his social media, it's just all photos of his baby. And then he just bosses games and then he just like eats people alive like when he plays. And just all of his pictures is just like him with his 1-year-old. And he's just like just constantly he's just the best. He's just the best.
I have to say, I mean, it was a good goal, but I think overall the fact that he was so dominant defensively for us throughout the game.
Amazing.
I was shocked to see on the Premier League official website where people actually vote for man of the match. Evan Ferguson was voted man of the match, which was mind-boggling to me, considering Palhinha just seemed so much more impressive throughout the game. There were 10,000 votes, and 5,000 of them went to Ferguson, and only
how many from Brighton?
Well, I mean, I assume the entire amount of Brighton. Leno was second as man of the match with 22% of the votes.
That's mental. You can't overlook his effort throughout the game.
He's the first player this season to have made 10 tackles in a single game of football in the Premier League. I think he won 16 duels or something crazy like that and scored the equaliser. I mean, he was dominant throughout, and I mean, I don't think he's the reason we won that game or we got points out of that game. Sorry, but he definitely just adds a lot of calm to the middle, and just shields the defense from having to deal with too much, and just gets himself around so much that you see a couple of instances, players sort of running in his general direction, and they just sort of turn around and go, "No, I'm not dealing with that," and they pass the ball back because they just know that they're going to get tackled, and it makes a huge difference because just his presence breaks up attacks straight away.
Yeah, well, he's an enforcer, isn't he? Which is what you're describing.
Yeah. Look, there were a couple of little half chances after that, but really, it has to be taken away as a good point. I don't know what you guys thought. I wasn't expecting to get anything out of this game personally. Sammy?
Oh no, I reckon this is an awesome result. Like this is a Europa League team, very well deserved as well. I mean, if you consider the players that they actually have and what Brighton achieve and what they're capable of, this is an incredible result for us, which I am really stoked for. We borderline don't even necessarily deserve it and if you think of like the grand scheme of it. But you know what? Like, I mean, if we are the Joker to Brighton's Batman, I'm chill with that. That's cool.
Well, the frustrating thing is obviously great point on the road. Absolutely take it with both hands. But the cloud that continues to hang over these games is that we just don't have a striker, don't look like being able to manufacture something out of the meager resources that we do have, and we've had to rely on our defensive midfielder who, may be a header from a set piece. wouldn't be out of the question. But for him, in sort of open play, to pick up an opportunity and slot in a goal, you can't be relying on that, and that's what got
Mm.
us out of trouble. And so great to snaffle a point, but geez, we got some problems, haven't we?
Snaffle.
Yeah, yeah, good word.
That's a word.
It is. Um, I think there's just a lot of things that still need to come together. Like you say, I don't know where the goals come from, but we've got three strikers in Muniz, Vinicius, and Jimenez who all, I think, have the ability to be not a 15 or 20 goal striker for us, but someone who can at least score a goal every 3 games or so. You got a Wobie who I think once it starts to click for him, he's going to start scoring goals. Willian, Pereira, Wilson, they just all haven't. It hasn't clicked yet for us. And look, we're sort of lucky in a way that we are still picking up points this year. Could be a lot worse. We could be just languishing down near the bottom of the league, and a game like
Jack.
this, you don't pick up anything.
Jack, we're being saved by 3 really shit sides at the bottom. That's
Yeah.
Well,
all there is to
you
it.
say that. You say that. The analysis was done. We're on the exact same number of points as we were last season as we are this season.
Doing it
with the
very differently,
exact
though, aren't we? Doing it very
We
differently.
are, sure. And look, I think it's more so that later in the season, we're not going to feel that threat of relegation because there are some poor sides in the league. It just makes you think what could have been had we actually signed a half-decent striker.
One thing that was interesting to look at the table after the game is that what are we in, something like 14th, and if it was not for our pretty awful goal difference, I think we'd be up in, if we'd got another point there or other 2 points, we'd be in 10th position, I think. Is that correct?
Actually, question to
Yeah,
you guys.
we'd be 10th.
Yeah,
So,
which is quite extraordinary.
Yeah.
So question to you guys, because I this just kind of came to me when we were like discussing this. What actually is our best front three at the moment? Because I genuinely don't know like what 3 players in that front lineup that we have that gel the best together. Because it's very random at the moment, and
Well,
like I feel like no kind of combination is really fully clicking.
I mean, Willian was disappointing last night. He looked tired. He didn't look sharp. He couldn't make an impact. He looked a bit disinterested from time to time. I hate to say. Bobby didn't have his best game, and Bobby's been okay from time to time this season. Harry Wilson looked okay as he came on, but I'm still not utterly convinced. And what else have we
Definitely
got?
look better with Muniz.
Well, look,
than...
I mean, I guess Sam posed a question: who's our front three? Just put it out there. I'd go Willian left, Wilson right, and probably at this stage, if it's our best, I'd go Vinicius up top. If it's what I think would work, I'd probably go Muniz up top.
Yeah, I think that's a fair shout.
Sammy, who's your 3?
I reckon it's probably that. Although I'm not 100% convinced that Willian makes my front 3, just because I like, and that's not saying I don't reckon he's great, because I reckon he is, but I'm just thinking like who works best in like that system, because I think Willian actually does pretty well when he plays with Vinicius, but Vinicius doesn't really play as well when he plays with Wilson. So, I mean, it'd probably be Muniz. To be honest, it could even be like Muniz, Wilson, Bobby Decordova, Reed for me.
Dad, your 3? Just pick a 3.
Yeah, I'm always going to pick Willian if he's fit, because he's that good. He's likely, even within a game when he's not playing that well, to still do something quite mercurial and next level to create a goal or score a goal. I think he's that good. Oh, geez. I think we're agreeing that Jimenez is not in the picture. I would hate to be picking between Muniz, who I feel needs to be given an opportunity, but I think he's way off the pace. probably have to go with Vinny actually, because I think he's got more experience, and I think he combines better with the team because I think he's just been around the team longer. And I'm going to probably give it to Wilson, even though I'm not utterly convinced. But I do like Iwobi in the pack there as well, by the way, as a starter. And I think he's starting to make a case to displace.
Pereira.
Yeah, I think he is.
Yeah,
You know,
definitely. I think that change worked out really well for us, and I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't see that coming forward. I also think having Pereira coming off the bench in the last 30 minutes is a really handy option to have as well.
Yeah, I liked it.
Guys, let's wrap up the game there. It's obviously a decent result for us. We weren't expecting to get a point, I'd say, but to come away with one away from home against a team who are flying high at the moment is a good result. And as you said, Dad, we are sitting on 12 points, sitting in 14th at the moment. Goal difference not ideal, mainly because of that Man City drubbing. But the fact is, we're level on points with Chelsea, who are 11th. We're only sitting, 3 points behind Man United, who sit in 8th, who we're playing on Saturday. So I think the other big thing there is we've got a 6-point gap between ourselves and Bournemouth, who are sitting in 17th. So it's definitely not panic stations at this point, even though we do have a tough run. But I think we do need to pick up a few points in the coming weeks.
Oh, yeah.
Let's look forward to a midweek game here. Now, it's a cup game against Ipswich. This is an Ipswich side who are doing really well in the championship so far this season. They're sitting second at the moment, almost 10 points ahead of Leeds, who are sitting third. Dad, I'll throw to you first, and then Sammy chip in as well. This is the last 16 of the Carabao Cup now. Looking at the other ties, Mansfield play Port Vale, Exeter play Middlesbrough. There's a high possibility that in a quarter-final we play a team who are potentially sitting in League One. How seriously do you think Silver's going to be taking this game?
Oh, very, very. I think it's a good opportunity to get a result here, and I think he's already signalled the fact that he is going to take this seriously. I think it's time to bring some bad news to Ed Sheeran's life. He's an Ipswich fan. He has far too good a life.
Bring some bad news to Ed Sheeran's life. Oh Christ! All right,
he's a big Ipswich fan.
Yeah, and I haven't been that fond of his last 3 albums, so I'm not going to feel bad about that. Yeah, Ipswich. Look, okay. I think it's actually really important for morale that we actually get a good result here. The only kind of like speed bump that I can see is like, of course, we have a better squad man for man, but what squad does he potentially put out? I mean, as Jack said before, potentially start, or I can't remember if it was you actually said it before, but potentially having Defugerol and Bassi. Is that really the lineup that you actually want to put out in a game like this? Or do you want to go with your strongest possible side to just completely nullify it? It's really kind of like what's more important to Silva, progressing in the Carabao Cup or getting a positive result against Man United? Because Man United in a really, really shaky state right now. I don't know. Like, what would you rather take for like morale? Would you rather progress in the Carabao, or would you rather get a win against Man U?
Well, the problem is I don't think it's either or. I think he's got to try and get some points at home against Man United on Saturday, and it's a pretty quick turnaround. I mean, on the subject of Luke de Fougerolles versus Bassi, the Bassi Ream de Fougerolles trio, I certainly wouldn't be uncomfortable about seeing de Fougerolles line up. I think he's perfectly capable of looking after himself in a game like that against. What is that noise?
I think Jack's left his microphone somewhere else, or I don't know. Anyway, Father?
Yeah, but look, we if we change up that squad significantly, I mean, I expect to see Leno rested You still got a problem there, Jack. If we, I expect to see Leno rested, and it looked like, I'm not sure if it was foxing, but he did appear to have a potential hamstring injury for
Yeah,
the
that worried
game.
me. That worried me a lot.
So, if there was any thought of him coming in, I think he doesn't get a game on Wednesday. But how many people can you really rest to make sure of Ipswich? You've got to put out a fairly good side against them. I don't think you can put out, a bunch of kids. I
Mm,
don't think it's going to work. And Man United. I watched that game last night, Man City Man United game, and Man City are a powerhouse, but United weren't terrible. Man City didn't let them look good, but sorry, did them didn't make them didn't allow them to look good. But they're a difficult opposition, albeit at
yeah.
home.
Oh, look, I mean, like for Man U, like they're really a squad in disarray. I mean, I thought on Nana particularly had a really really good game against Man City. Man City is just ruthless though, and like Harry Maguire is kind of coming into form a little bit more, but that entire squad, it's kind of like that's kind of ours for the taking if we go in it properly. And yeah, I mean, can you do two full strength squads back to back? Or actually, I'm gonna pose a question. Who would you feel comfortable resting for the Ipswich game? Um, who would you is there anybody that you would be like, I'm okay with resting them for Ipswich to play for Man United or vice versa?
I I think there's we've gone around in a couple of circles there. I think one thing is to consider with Ipswich is they're playing in the championship. The main goal of any championship side is to get to the Premier League. That's going to be their
Mm,
focus.
yeah.
This is already their fourth game in the League Cup for this season, meaning that minimum they'll be playing 50 games. They've also got FA Cup games to play. Let's say they get through 3 rounds there, 53 games in a season. It's a very, very long season. That's if you avoid getting to the playoffs as well. They they'll want to do well, but I think they'll make some changes as well. I'd be surprised if they put out their full strength 11 against us. Um, I'd be happy for us to rotate a fair bit in this game, and I expect we will. I'd say we'll see Sasa Lukic play. I'd say we could see someone like a Luke Harris get a game. You know, I'd say Robinson could get rested. We'll see Ballatore again. There'll
Mm,
definitely be some rotation. I wouldn't even be surprised if we saw Rodak in goal. So I'd expect five, maybe six changes. Could see Wilson get a start, seeing as he's been on the bench recently.
yeah.
Um, I think we'll keep a strong core. I think Palhinha will probably play, but I expect us to take this one fairly seriously and try and push through. But at the same time, I think Dad might have said at the very start, these guys are a championship team. We should be beating them quite comfortably anyway. Even if we make quite a few rotations, we should still have the strength to put them to the sword.
But to kind of agree with Black, White, and Fred following along on the live stream here, I, maybe the better approach is if you believe that we're taking this fixture and this run seriously, and I think we are. I think we
Mm.
are.
Mm,
So we want to win this because it's only Ipswich, right? Why wouldn't you put your best side out, try and get a goal or two ahead, and then make your substitutions? Start with Reed, bring Lukic on. Start with Iwobi, bring Andreas on. Start with what's his name? Vinny might still be injured, so we may not have a choice. It might be between Jimenez and Muniz anyway.
I mean,
But
I
maybe
guess the point
give
there is
Muniz a go.
do we really know who our starting 11 is? Because it seems to change
nope.
fairly regularly. Like you could play the team who we played against Spurs, and it's quite a bit of rotate. Oh, maybe not Spurs because that's quite recent, but let's go back to like the Luton game, and the team is very different from the team we played on the weekend. So I think we've got enough quality across the park to be able to make quite a few substitutions and still call it pretty close to a first team, because I think we don't have, like some clubs have, that like real quality starting 11 who are the team who's going to start every single game. We're still trying to find our identity, because there's only a handful, I think, who start every game, for me at least, and it's Palhinha, Leno, and probably Robinson and Tete.
But
Apart
wouldn't it
from
be
that,
great?
across the board, it's pretty interchangeable.
Do you know how far Tete is from coming back?
I think he's still a little way off. Tete, who is it? Tete, Tosin, Adama are all not too far off, and Diop's about 3 weeks, I think he said.
Oh, I really want
Yeah.
Traore back. I feel like we could really, really use him right now, just for like some chaos, you know?
But none of
We
these
just
guys
need-
are going to start. You know, they'll
No, of course not. But
bench at best. Yeah.
But yeah,
So
look, it's
to summarise, Jack, I'd actually start strong. Notwithstanding, we've got a
Yeah.
game 3 days later. I'd start strong and almost be committed to making a lot of changes fairly early in the second half, come what may. So give it your best shot. Try and get ahead, and then rest those players, because you definitely need your best 11 for Saturday.
Yeah, look, it's a pretty rough week for fixtures in terms of playing a Sunday game and then playing the early Saturday game as well, as
yeah.
well as having a cup game midweek. Admittedly, teams like Man United, they're playing in Europe as well, so they do have those midweek games. But obviously, Fulham's squad isn't a Man United style squad where you've got so much talent that you can change in and out. Look, I think we all agree that Fulham will be taking this one fairly seriously and really pushing for a victory. It's just a matter of what kind of changes we see from Silva. I do hope that we play a fairly full strength side and just make a couple of little rotations purely for resting players. But again, you've got those guys on the bench to come in later. Ipswich are going to give us a good test, I think. And look, it'll be a good game. I'm not sure how many people are going to be able to watch it. I don't know what the streaming status of this game is like. These cup games are always hard to find on the random channels floating around on your Skybox or your Foxtel. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this one, because I really do hope that Fulham go deep into this competition. And looking at the other ties, it really does look like a competition that if we get a little bit lucky in the draw, we're going to be in a semi-final of a cup. Not a complete given, but imagine if you pull Mansfield Town in the quarterfinals of the EFL Cup. Like, you feel like it's your time if stuff like that happens.
Sure.
So yeah, big time. Fingers crossed for this game. It should be a really good one. Hopefully, we get a good number of travelling fans to Ipswich, which I called a Midlands club and got absolutely blasted for last time around. But I stand by it. They're in the Midlands.
I agree. I agree.
Looking forward to.
They're not.
They are absolutely, for the purpose of this podcast, they are in the Midlands.
Please, you're
I am
embarrassing
with
me.
Jack. I am with Jack. Support
you're
your family.
both-
man.
Saturday,
You're
we
both
come up
nowhere.
against-
Saturday.
Saturday we come up against Man United. Look, we will hopefully touch on this later in the week, but I do want to just touch on it tonight, just in case we don't manage to get to it. Look, Man United, as I think we all said, we did watch the Manchester Derby overnight, and it's hard to judge Man U based on that game because of the fact they're playing against City, who are such a good side, and like you said, Dad, they just make good teams just kind of look crap. And it really felt like Man United. I was watching it going, geez, Man U are terrible. And then occasionally they got the ball and I saw them go forward and went, oh, wait, no, they are actually quite good.
Yeah.
They just can't win the ball off City. And when City have it, they move the ball so slickly that it's just like men against boys. But I'll go to their recent form as well, because it might be a bit more interesting to talk about. Looking at some of their results, Sammy, they did lose to Man City 3-0, got fairly battered by them, really, in the scheme of things. But apart from that, in the league at least, they've had a couple of good results. Not so much in Europe with the loss to Galatasaray. They did beat Copenhagen, although that was a penalty save from Onana I think in the last minute, it might have been the last kick of the game, and Harry Maguire scoring a goal from a corner. So,
Good to
so
see.
your take on Man U at the moment, Sammy, because they're always last few years they've been an interesting beast to try and follow.
Yeah, I like weirdly because I've got quite a few friends who are Man United supporters, and they, I mean, as you guys know, as an Australian fan, you take all the Premier League fans that you can get. So they kind of talk to me, and it's a very troubling time to be a Man United fan at the moment. Everything with Mason Greenwood, everything with Anthony, everything with the Glazers. It's and everything with Harry Maguire as well, and Jadon Sancho. They're really, really, really struggling with lots of internal stuff. And there are plenty of really talented players there that are essentially just trying to play football and just trying to do the best that they can. But as we all know here, when the back room is going terrible, it all kind of trickles down. And it's really good to see players. Genuinely, it's good to see players like Harry Maguire actually coming back around, because I don't think Harry Maguire is a bad player. I think the circumstances of Man United, the price tag he was given, and just that club, there is so much crap that's going on. It's really hard, I think, genuinely to be a player, to play at your absolute best there. So, and I feel that this season at the moment is kind of like or maybe the last two seasons have kind of been the combination of all of that. So for us, it can be a real kind of moment. I mean, I'm sure you guys remember, like, last time we played them when Mitrovic blew a fuse and everything went to shit. Before that, we were playing a serious game against them, because I mean, a united front can really, no pun intended, a united front can really kind of steal something away from these guys. I don't take too much away from the City game, because City are next level. But I mean, if you look at all of the games that they've played against Brentford, against Sheffield, only 2 goals in it. Like, it's pretty close. If we can really get our shit together, we could create something. I mean, if you can score 2 goals against Man United, it's really it's anyone's contest. So I don't see this as a write-off. I see this as a serious opportunity. We just have to turn up and play with our best squad and be really organized. But I could see it. I could totally see it.
That's a very optimistic viewpoint, young fella.
I do what I can.
You made a reference to our last game in that cup game at
I don't want to talk about it too much. Don't dwell. Don't dwell.
No, my point was going to be that we are not that side.
Yeah.
We were firing very much up for it, and until the great implosion, we were playing out of our skin.
Yeah.
Way beyond, our capability even that night. You talk about just quietly putting a couple past Man United, then parking the bus.
Not parking the bus. Not parking the bus.
Well, I added that bit, but God, if you got a couple past them, you would park the bus. But I just don't know where that's going to come from. Quite honestly, I think one thing I think is in our favour, if we can take it as a positive, is that it doesn't matter how badly Man United are playing. Playing them at Old Trafford is really, really difficult.
Yeah,
it's really difficult.
That's fair.
It's a huge crowd, very noisy. It's very intimidating. It's a cauldron, and them playing at the Cottage is probably. I mean, United fans still make a lot of noise at the Cottage, but at least it's a more even playing field from our perspective. But all I can say is that this Fulham side still has that sort of essence of being very up for very big games against big clubs. We still tend to turn up and do a good job, even though we're not the same team as we were at our very best last year. But there's still enough good players who want to put out and sort of put on a good showing against these big teams for pride alone. So I don't know. Don't be thinking Man United in their disarray with their commercial problems they've got, with their personnel problems, and things aren't clicking. They've still got an incredible squad, which we would cut off limbs to have.
Mm.
And individual quality will do you, even if a team of an uncohesive team are having trouble. Individual brilliance. You only need to give Rashford half a chance, and he'll score a handful of goals. So it's a really tough fixture. Make no mistake about it. We can crow as much as we like, but it's a really difficult game.
Yeah. What do
Look,
you reckon, Jack?
we made a few comments saying it's a different side. It's actually the game you're talking about is not the last time we played Man United. We played them, if you remember, the very end of May,
Yeah.
the 28th of May, lost
Yep.
2-1. Tete scored early on, and Sancho and Fernandez scored. If you actually look at the lineup in that game, and again, I'd say we gave him a pretty good game in that game. We had Pereira out injured with his broken ankle or whatever that was.
Mm-hmm.
Tim Ream out with his broken arm.
Yeah.
We had Sasa Lukic, Kearney, and Palhinha in the middle. Obviously, we had Mitra up front, but we had Tosin and Diop at the central defence. I actually think the team that we're going into the weekend with against Man United could potentially, minus Mitro, be as strong, if not stronger, with some of the new additions we've had with players like Iwobi floating around. Obviously, having those guys who were injured available now, it could be a decent opportunity for a victory. And if you look at the league table as well, Man U have scored 11 goals this season. Fulham have scored 9.
Yeah.
Man U have conceded 16 goals this season. Fulham have conceded 16. Like, we're actually in fairly similar positions. The difference is they've won 5 games and lost 5. We've only managed to win 3 and drawn 3 and lost 4. Like, our actual results aren't that dissimilar at this stage of the season. They've just managed to do what really good teams do, which is in games like the Brighton game, they somehow managed to nick a win and pick up those few extra points. But really, this isn't a side who are scoring a huge amount of goals. If you look at Brighton, who we kept to a single goal, they've scored 23 in their 10 games this season, more than double Man United. So it's not like we're coming up against this powerhouse who could be scoring 3 or 4 against us. They're not that team at the moment. So it really feels like a bit of an opportunity to take something from this game.
I think as well, Jack, to add to your point, like, of course, Man United can score 5 against us on a good day, but the key thing with them is, at the moment, especially, if you can get on top of them, they will drop their heads, and then that is a crazy opportunity for teams like us. Dad, you were saying?
I think it's. I don't think it's realistic to simply look at the names on the team sheet and say, oh, 8 out of the 11 players that we still have played in the last game, and therefore, man for man, we should do very well. I think what was outstanding about that, team last season is just how well they performed together. And it's not really working. It works in moments. Not having a strike force up front is a massive, massive problem, because even though no one up front for us last season scored 30 or 40 goals like a Haaland, but you could rely on Mitro in a game to get a goal.
Or at least to set something up. And
Yep. And so that's a huge miss. I think defensively we were much more reliable last season. I love Bassi, I love Castagna, but boy, we're in a bit of a pickle at the moment. We're trying to put makeshift back fours out, and it is causing problems from time to time. And you look at that, and you look at those back four players, and you don't dislike any of them, and you're not unhappy that they're in our squad. But as a unit, I think I'd prefer where we were last season as a back four, consistently, same team out every week, and people clearly knowing um, who they're playing alongside. So it's. I think it's not as simple as looking at the personnel. There's been a lot of changes, and also it's not linear. You can't just say, everything's great except for that one position that we're having a problem with, because that one position, which happens to be the goal scoring position, actually counts for a lot, obviously.
No, it's all valid. It's all valid.
Yeah, definitely. Look, I don't think it's a given that we're getting anything out of this game, but it definitely does feel like an opportunity to maybe pounce on some of the weaknesses that Man U have at the moment. And look, we know we're in a bit of a rough run at the moment in terms of the fixtures we do have coming up. So we do need to look for those opportunities. And if Silva would probably be sniffing around this Man United game, going, this is a team who are not flying high, are not dominating teams like some of the other teams up the top of the table are. And I mean, really, they're kind of in a position sitting in 8th in the league and only 3 points above us, where you do target a game like this as a possible winnable game. So I think we go into it full of confidence. And, when you play against a team like Man United, we've seen it before with this Fulham team, they really do get up for those big games. So I have the faith that we'll actually go out there and try and make something happen and try and pull some points out of this one. But look, there's a long way to go until this game. We've got to get through Ipswich without any injuries and make sure that we get through that game unscathed. And there's the potential for a few players to return. Traore, Tosin, Tete could all be back by the time this game rolls around as well. So there's a lot of factors to throw up in the air for this one.
If we can press Man United the way in which we pressed Brighton in the second half, and put Onana under pressure. I mean, I like watching him, but he's clearly a bit vulnerable, isn't he? He's kind of all over the place. He's exciting, but can you imagine if we pressed him and their defenders as hard as we pressed in the opening stages of this, in the opening stages of the second half yesterday? That could be interesting.
Oh, definitely, definitely. Guys, let's move on and we'll talk about the Fulham Women's team who had a good win on Sunday against Dorking Wanderers, a 4-0 victory. Goals from Rachel Panting, Sasha Adamson, and Edie Bushell with 2. Another really good victory for the team. Let's have a quick look at the table just to put it in some perspective. Dorking Wanderers obviously not having the best season so far, but again, as we've said multiple times, it's all about putting these teams away and making sure that we do get the results against them. Dad and Sam, it's good to see Fulham continuing to put the pressure on Dartford, but really do need Dartford to slip up at some point. Hey, otherwise it's going to be a tough run in when we have to play them later in the season.
But it's one of those seasons, isn't it, where it's essentially 2 at the top, just going punch for punch. It's like a bantamweight fight where it's toe to toe, and they're just swapping blows, and someone has got to actually falter or look the wrong way and just cop a blow to the side of the head that wasn't expected. So you just got to keep your head down. And I as I said many times now, I think this team know what the mission is, and they're just going to keep plodding away and just collecting those points. And like you said, if 2 plays 8, you have to bury them. You do have to make it absolutely certain. What? Too much?
Sorry. No. Yeah, well, a little bit, but it's just the way you use that. You have to bury them. You have to kill them. You have to kill their grandchildren.
You have to. Yep, you have to get one and then put your foot on their throat and finish it off.
Just talking like Julius Caesar.
Is that too much for women's football?
No,
I love it. It's the way it should be.
It's just very aggressive language. It's very aggressive.
I'm sure the the lovely ladies of Fulham in the change rooms would be using very similar language when they talk about the way in which they're going to go about their business.
Oh
Maybe I'm wrong.
no, I think you're right. I think you're right, but it's just the level of violence. Like we've spoken at length about the men's game and the level of like sheer violence that's coming out about the women's side is it's quite entertaining. It's good. It's good.
I mean, one thing to mention, there's obviously a few good things off the back of this game. I'll single out Sasha Adamson first, who's had a really good season since joining. She joined from #United last year. She's scoring goals, assisting as well, though I think is the key part to this. And you always need a playmaker in the side. We talk about it when we're talking about Fulham with Andreas Pereira, for example, when his ability to create dries up, you really notice it because you're just not getting the same service to the strikers. It's just not clicking. Sasha has already got 10 assists this year to go with 7 goals. She's leading the league in assists. She's Fulham's, I think, third equal top goal scorer at this stage with 7. It's a brilliant signing. #United, obviously, a few leagues above us at the moment. So to get Sasha down to Fulham is obviously making a massive difference just creatively. And then also to put a spotlight on Edie Bushell as well, who's only 18 years old, spending a lot of time coming off the bench for Fulham as well. But the fact that she's got 7 goals from one start this season, she's come off the bench 10 times and picked up 7 goals and got 3 assists to go with that as well as an 18-year-old. That's some serious talent there.
It's all that next stepping. It's all that next stepping, just warming up and just getting that viciousness in, just doing that in the change room. It seems to work, just get them young, get them young, get them ready and hungry. Nah, it's awesome. Awesome effort. Like,
looking forward to this Sunday's game. It's a bit of a change of pace with the I'll get the name exactly right because it's a long name. The London and South East Regional Women's League Cup. So this is a cup competition run, obviously, within this division. There's the Premier Division and then there's Division 1 North and South. Clapton Community Football Club sit in the Division 1 South. Division 1 North, I believe. The game is being played this Sunday at 2 p.m. Look, it's one that Fulham will be expecting to win. Clapton are sitting 7th in the league so far. They've actually had a pretty good season. 7th in the league maybe doesn't actually justify the performances. They've only lost a handful of games, but had quite a few draws in there. Top goal scorer Callisto with 7 goals so far this season, and one to watch as well, Maria Mendonca, 3 goals, 2 assists. Look, there's a lot of cup competitions for the girls throughout the year to go with the league. Dad and Sam, I guess, would you expect some rotation for a game like this, knowing that the league is obviously going to be the focus because we want to get promoted? I guess we're having kind of the same conversation we were having about the Ipswich game. But how much focus do you think Fulham will be putting on this cup competition, considering we're also playing in the FA Cup and making waves in the FA Cup and having such a tough fight in the league as well?
I'm still admiring the way you glided over the first name of the Clapton top goal scorer.
Olateju Callisto. Yeah, of course. I could have pronounced it if I wanted to.
Oh yeah, I'm sure if she's listening, she won't recognize herself from that.
I thought that was a pretty good
I hope it was
pronunciation.
close. I hope it was
No,
close.
I'm not having that. Jack, you did good. Shut up.
Yeah, I think. Look, they could probably afford. They seem to have quite a decent amount of squad depth, and I suspect we will see some rotation here because I think there's I think it's a level of confidence that we could probably go out with with a few changes and at least have some firepower on the bench and make some changes in the second half if we need to.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I feel like you could do it either way. I mean, I feel that you could blood some fresher players who haven't necessarily had as much time to get on like the score sheet, because I think with the way that the girls are scoring at the moment, like anyone can essentially get the goals. And I mean, it's great for confidence to essentially share that around as much as possible. But I could totally see just justifying just keeping our best 11 as warm as physically possible, just giving them as much time and as much experience, and just getting them as hard in seasons as physically possible for like the upcoming games ahead. I mean, the girls are playing so strong at the moment. It could really do either, and it could both ways can be completely justified, and I wouldn't have an issue with it. You know.
Just remind me, Jack. When is this game?
Well, I was about to say the one thing that we, I guess, take into consideration with the Ipswich game is the fact that that's a midweek game. This game is played on Sunday, so there's no midweek games for these for these cup games. This is a Sunday game, so it's not like there's a real need or want for rotation. We've got this game on the 5th of November, then we play Portsmouth in the FA Cup on the 12th of November, which is also a Sunday. And then it's the game actually at Craven Cottage after that on the 19th of November.
So I take it all back. No rotation for me.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a good point to make, because you don't actually have to rotate players at that point. You can play your normal starting 11 and really put a lot of focus on this. I guess the reason that you might rotate players is because they are in a league below, and we should be winning this one fairly comfortably in a similar sort of vein to the Ipswich game. You feel like with the strength of our squads that we've got, we can make some of those rotations. Like maybe we do see Edie Bushell start a game, considering she's coming off the bench and scoring so often. Maybe this is a good opportunity to give her 70 odd minutes and sub her off later in the game. And some of those other players who are making impacts off the bench, this could be an opportunity to actually stake a claim for a first team spot, especially with some games coming up. And I think everyone will be wanting to really stake their claim before that Craven Cottage game, because you'll be wanting to get on that pitch through any way possible.
Yep.
But look, I'll touch on the top goal scorers. Sophie Manzi currently still the top goal scorer with 13 goals. Sophie's actually currently suspended after being sent off, which didn't get reported on anywhere that I saw, unfortunately. But Sophie's out for 3 games, so she will. I believe she missed the game this weekend. She'll miss the Clapton game and the Portsmouth game, but she'll be back for the game at Craven Cottage. So I expect she could slide straight back into the starting lineup, but who knows, depending on how the games over the next couple of weeks go. Georgia Heisman with 8 goals, Sasha Adamson and Edie Bushell all both on 7 goals, and then a smattering of other players chipping in with goals throughout. It's again looking really strong, the fact that we're scoring goals from everywhere. It's not just strikers, it's midfielders, it's defenders, it's wing backs. All we need to see is one of the keepers score before the end of the season to really round out the pack. So, look, guys, I think we can probably wrap it up there. It's been a lot to cover. We've talked through the Brighton game. We've talked through the upcoming Ipswich and Man United game, and also gone over the women's recent results and upcoming fixtures. So, geez, it's a big one, but it's worth talking about it all because it's all good stuff. So, Sammy, thank you for staying with us. The time at the moment is 1 a.m. Is that right?
Yeah, my eyes are as pink as my shirt. I
That's
will
not a
get.
good thing, Sam.
I will get up tomorrow. I will struggle to get up, but I will have enjoyed doing this podcast. And that's all from me, you know?
I think we need to make a compilation of your openings to the podcast and your endings to the podcast and just put them next to each other just to see how the energy gets sapped from your body across an hour period.
I mean, I can definitely do that. That's for end of season greatest hits kind of stuff. But yeah, let's invest.
They're all health anxieties as well. The things that dominate your mind.
Yeah, my mother's got that as well. Love you, Mum.
She's not listening, trust me. And Dad, thanks for joining us tonight as well.
Yeah, very welcome. Look forward to a busy week of games. 3 games in 6 days.
Yeah, no, it's a busy one, and yeah, there's a lot to come over the next couple of days. So let's
Can you tell me what channel is it on for our Australian folk? Is this on Optus or is it Paramount or where do we find
um
this?
from memory, I think the League Cup fixtures are on Paramount. Oh, that might be the FA Cup games.
Uh, FA
Honestly,
Cup
not sure.
FA Cup was definitely Paramount.
Yeah, honestly, not
Um,
sure. I will definitely do a little bit of research and tweet that out when I do find out for our Australian followers. Um, but yeah, it's if there's an illegal stream floating around, I suggest people try and search around to find out where the game's actually going to be streamed. I'm not sure. I think from memory, only one League Cup game got streamed last round.
The word
And so
inconvenient comes to mind.
yeah, I mean, supporting a team on the other side of the world is slightly inconvenient sometimes, especially when this game kicks off at 3:45 a.m. local time for us. So, yeah, look, I will look into that and find out what channel that game will be on. And look, I'm also really hopeful that the Fulham versus Arsenal game for the ladies is going to be streamed by Fulham at least in some capacity, because I think that's one that I really hope we can watch, and yeah, hopefully we can push for that to be streamed so we can watch that one live, because I think that would be such a great game to watch.
Yeah, it'll be
Um,
a vibe.
But look, thanks again, guys, for joining me tonight. Really interesting chat, going through a lot of stuff, and yeah, a few big days for the club coming up. So, looking forward to catching up when we've got a few results in the bag, hopefully into the next round of the cup, and maybe a decent result against Man United as well. But until then, come on, you Whites.